I look after strategy at PHE, marketing. And as a department, we run the public-facing marketing campaigns and behaviour change campaigns across the health system, including the NHS. We talk a lot about culture internally because we do set out to influence it. And we're different in one respect, in that we actually publish our marketing strategy. If I can move on to that. We actually publish our marketing strategy, and there's two reasons why we do that. The first reason is because we're marketing on the public purse, so we've got a transparency role to play. The second thing is that we're working with such huge issues. We're trying to change culture, British culture around health. We can't do it by ourselves. So actually the marketing strategy is about trying to pull everyone together with us. We're trying to get the rest of government, whether that be education, Sport England, culture, local government, the commercial sector, you know, the big technology providers, and the third sector, all to come together to help us create this new environment for healthy change. And we talk in our strategy about supporting the creation of an environment that's conducive to change, helping to drive the cultural acceptance of healthy behaviours. We tend to talk a lot about cultural impact. So when we talk about culture change, that feels almost like something that happens a little bit organically. And something that happens to us. So we tend to talk about cultural impact because we think that that kind of sets the tone for the intent that we have with our campaigns. So I just wanted to give you a bit of a view of the kind of things that we do. I think that the first thing to say is that what we do isn't largely different from a lot of what other marketing organisations do. What we're trying to do is influence people to think, feel and do differently. And that's what everybody else in marketing does. You might not see all of our work because largely if you're in this room, you're probably not target market. So there's quite a big social gradient to health. So less affluent people, less educated people have poorer health outcomes on basically every issue that we go for. Even alcohol. More wealthy people drink more alcohol, but actually the health outcomes are worse for the poorer people again. So we're after a lower socio-demographic. We're after less educated, less wealthy people. So we're going after an audience that need more nudges and more support to change. And we're also working in some areas that are pretty tricky, even right down to addiction, like in smoking. But there's still a role for marketing. One of the things that we do increasingly across all of our campaigns is we use behavioural science, behavioural economics. And my shorthand for that is it's basically working with the way that the human brain works so that our campaigns appeal to what naturally humans are thinking, and therefore uptake of these difficult issues happen more readily. Chunking is one of the things that we use pretty much across all of the campaigns. And again, I think that's because we're working on some pretty hefty issues. So we kind of chunk it down into bite-sized steps. Stoptober's a classic example. Quit forever, that's too big, I'm not going to do that. Quit for 28 days. And actually, if you get to 28 days, you're more likely to quit forever anyway. Also in physical activity, children need to do 60 minutes of physical activity a day. But actually, that's pretty daunting if you're a parent and you're trying to increase exercise or you're at school, so we break it down into 10-minute shake-ups. We also use other things, like social norming. So in Stoptober, we tell everybody that everybody else is quitting at that time of year, and again, that increases the appeal of the programme. The How Are You quiz is really about change one thing. Again, it's chunking things down. And we use heuristics like Act Fast for Stroke. This is quite interesting. So I thought I'd talk about one of the territories that we've worked in for a long time. And sometimes with culture change, when you change a cultural norm, it disappears because either everybody's doing it and then everybody's doing it, so you can't, it becomes normal, you don't see it, or because that behaviour has actually disappeared. And so you have to look backwards to actually see it. I don't know if you can see this advert on the left, but it's pretty culturally inappropriate today. But I think it's quite interesting to look back, to think that wasn't that long ago. So on the left, you've got an advert which is basically, first of all, advertising smoking. Well, we can't do that now. It's advocating smoking. And bizarrely, it is advocating blowing smoke in other people's faces, so second-hand smoke. Who knew with that strapline that that's how you get the ladies? So have I covered everything there? Oh no, it's massively culturally inappropriate and offensive to women. On the right-hand side, I've kind of juxtaposed it with some more recent stuff that we do. I'd say recent, but it's probably about 10 years old now. And so today, you can't advertise smoking. And today, we tell you that every cigarette is bad for your health. And we also tell you that your smoking can be bad for others around you, particularly the vulnerable, so children, people working in the hospitality industry. And I think it's interesting to also look back and think that it's only just over a decade ago since the smoking ban in public enclosed spaces came in. And how weird that would feel now to have somebody smoking next to you in a restaurant or that kind of thing. And marketing played a really interesting role because actually when you think back to that time, in the run-up to that ban coming in, it was really divisive. Actually, there were a lot of people who really weren't up for it and thought it was an affront on our freedom. And actually what marketing did was it corralled public opinion by showing them the evidence and by showing them that we needed to protect other people. I think smoking is quite interesting because it's kind of classic case of marketing in reverse. We've kind of used the 4 Ps and done the reverse of what you do in the commercial sector. So price, we've put it up massively. Place, we've limited distribution, got rid of vending machines, and we've covered cigarettes up so you can't even see them. Promotion, it can't be advertised, and packaging. A lot of work went into making those packaging, the packaging on cigarettes, that actual colour. It's trying to make them as unappealing as possible, and a lot of work went into that. We've been working on tobacco for decades, and I've demonstrated the kind of cultural change we've achieved around it. But I wanted to kind of bring us up to date and talk about something much more recent and where we've actually turned the dial much more quickly. So Change for Life is our consumer-facing program around childhood obesity. So we look at both nutrition and physical activity. Now, we've only been talking about sugar for the past 3 years. So it's really very recent. And in those 3 years, we've actually already turned the dial. So when we used to go out talking about sugar, we used to be saying children are having 3 times too much sugar. And when we go out next time, we'll be needing to say children are having 2 times too much sugar, which is a massive change in 3 years. Our model's across the bottom there, so I just wanted to talk briefly about what we do. We've got a model to it. There's a bit of a formula. It all starts with an evidence base and kind of quite chunky reports that go out, and they get into the high-end media, the Today programme and that kind of thing. We work really hard to translate it down to mass media with PR and to get it onto the sofas and into lifestyle. We make a load of noise around it, but importantly, we make the right noise. So it's about alerting our audience who need more help, more support, more translation of everything into something that's relevant for them. Motivate is about making it personally relevant for that audience and showing them that they can take small steps and it's going to make really quite a big difference. And then what we also do is support people. I don't know if anyone's aware of our sugar scanner, but basically we've got a food scanner that brings to life what's actually in your food. So you scan the food, and what comes up is big fat globules or cubes of sugar, which really make people understand what's in their food. And it works really well because children get involved in it too. I'll speak a little bit about that later. What's most important, though, is that we're on the side of mums to gain their trust. I mean, what we don't do is we don't hector, we don't nag, and we don't judge. Basically, we support with new information and new tips, tools, and techniques. If we ever judged, if we ever hectored, we'd lose our right to be able to speak to this audience and we'd lose the trust that we've got. And the only way that we can really achieve change at the scale that we're looking for and on these really tricky issues is by understanding the audience completely. So insight runs through everything we do. Ethnography, we do it rarely, but I'd say it's absolutely invaluable. And so I just wanted to show you a little bit of the ethnography to show you the complexity of the obesity issue.
If you read, I'll bring you some sweets tonight when I pick you up from school.
Oh, we've already.
So you don't want any sweets when I pick you up from school?
Okay.
Then go on then.
Oh.
All right, after the book then. You can choose how many pages as long as it's past 4 pages.
You want them to be independent and be their own person. Then they're not always going to be relying on you. They put their own stuff in because they like it. I'd rather them put their own pack up in then I know it's going to be eaten and not wasted.
Chris, what's this milkshake thing for you and chocolate cookie? It's also a way of bonding together. It's like we eat together, so it's time to talk about what happened during the day. You know, it's like socialization part of things. Here you go. Oh, come on, eat it now.
Use this bowl.
Most of the kids I know, I think they eat small portions, but he eats what I eat. So it's like my portion is his portion, so that's why he's getting big. You're done? You want some noodles? Are you sure? Eat more.
Drink your juice, anak.
Drink your juice, come on now. Finish up your juice.
When she was a baby and I took her to the health clinic, they were sort of like horrified because she was considered underweight at the time. She was underweight, and then I was questioned, oh, what are you giving her? How many ounces, you know, being that because at the time I was breastfeeding. Now they want to say she's over, you know, so it's sort of...
I don't think he's heavy unhealthy, but I think he's heavy healthy.
She's not overweight.
He's not fat, he's broad.
Well, there's only Ethan, he's a bit podgy, but he's a young child.
I say, no, you're going to make a good rugby player, or, you know, you're just strong.
He has a lot of muscles. His muscles.
He's quite heavy compared to a lot of his classmates. And then you've got the parents that's like, oh, well, you know, my child's not fat, my child is skinny. And you're like, well, what do they eat? And they're like, well, and then you're like, oh, you see on Facebook, well, you were at McDonald's, I think you were at KFC the night before. And I'm like, well, your kid's not healthy at all. They might be skinny.
So I think that what's interesting about that, first of all, for me, it's about this audience might be different that we're speaking to, and we really need to understand them, but also it really humanises this audience as well. So in loads of respects, they're no different to anyone else. They love their kids, and food is really complicated, and food is really linked into love and provision and household and plenty, and you saw all of that coming through in the insights there. So what does that mean for us when we come to put a campaign together? Nutrition's confusing. Even healthy stuff can be bad, and people are confused by it. There's genuine confusion and there's willful confusion. So what we do is we simplify the problem. There are some areas that we can't go at. So kind of family snuggle time on a Friday night when everybody's sat there and you're eating sugary products. Everyone knows there's sugar in those products, but we can't go near those because it's kind of sacrosanct family time. What we can do is talk about the hidden sugar. So when people think they're doing the right thing and there's actually hidden sugar in the food that they're not aware of, we can go there. People also think that healthy is going to be tasteless, expensive and out of reach, and it's going to create an argument. And again, I think this will be familiar to a lot of households. We try to avoid those arguments, again, because the family is about love. So what we try to do is provide realistic swaps, and that means there are categories that we can look at where we can provide realistic swaps. And by that I mean kind of, you know, a yogurt to a low sugar yogurt, or sugary cereals to low sugar cereals. We're not talking about, you know, moving people to a chicory salad or something, you know, kind of really off the scale. It's got to be realistic. And what we also do is provide solutions, and I mentioned it before, like the food scanner, where the children become part of the solution and they're engaged in the problem. And parents consistently tell us that that's what they want. So they want to avoid the argument and they want to bring the children into the solution. And a really important point, and I think it came out there in the videos as well, is that parents don't recognise their kids as fat and overweight or whatever you want to call it. And when they do, they're often more likely to work on the children's resilience rather than the diet. And again, that comes from a place of love and wanting to do the best thing for your kids. So what we tend to do is talk about fat on the inside and unhealthy on the inside. And that really works because people find it really hard to judge what's a healthy weight on the outside. And then just moving on, and I'll skip through this really quickly, but this is just some of the evidence that we've developed over the years. Change for Life has got really high awareness and traction with mothers. I think only 1% of the audience, and I don't know what they're thinking, don't trust it. It's got massive traction in primary schools. We push out all of our stuff through primary schools. We create lesson plans. We do goodie bags. Children bring home the materials into the household in virtually all schools throughout the country. We get massive traction on our digital tools like the food scanner. loads of scans there. Obviously, reported behaviour change, we get it in spades as well. So on the back of the campaigns, on sugar, we get 30%. When you expand it out into other areas, you get a higher reported behaviour change. But obviously, that's only reported. So we do a bunch of other studies as well to show what we can do. And I think, interestingly, what we've been able to show is that when we offer our swaps and put our advertising outside of point of purchase, so outside of Tesco stores, in this case, in a control trial, we actually showed that we could influence the purchases in store and take down the sugar purchased in the categories that we went after. And we've done the same as well in the digital space with My Supermarket. And then also we've taken it a step further and we've worked with Newcastle University, who've got this tool where you can simply and quickly note down your dietary intake. And so we did a dietary intake study and we showed that with exposed and non-exposed groups to our campaigns, we were able to take out a cube of sugar per day out of children's diets. But I'd say that the most important thing for this is when marketing works really closely with policy and we bring industry and everybody together to work on the solution. And as I said before, just in 3 years, we started off saying children are having 3 times too much sugar, and now we're at 2 times, and I think that's great progress.